Here's at BookTalkReviews.com. We're taking a first look at Sunshine. This is a vampire fantasy, fairy fantasy novel written by Robin McKinley, and it's a very interesting concept, very interesting novel in general. It's really hooking, provocative for such a vampire story because I've been a little bit redundant in the coming days of this young adult fictional world that we live in today. But it has been very strongly rated in terms of both by authors and by critics alike. So we're just taking a look at this novel. Neil Gaiman, who is the author by the Graveyard Book, one of my personal favorites, says it's pretty much perfect. Yeah, just about a lot of people who said that this is a very powerful story in general. And you don't really doubt those people who say those things. So let's just take a look at what's beneath the cover. Basically, the story is centered on this young girl called Sunshine. She works in this coffee shop, or a coffee shop has very early hours, and her entire life is around this coffee shop. She's very young. She's a teenager, around 17, and she just wakes up early, goes to work, comes home, and she gets a little money, and she wants to buy her own house and start her own life. And she meets somebody she thinks she kind of likes in the coffee shop, and she's really planning her future and just taking things slowly, but she's working very hardly, and she isn't doing any more school or education for that matter. So it's she's a very interesting girl. And she lives in this pretty small town. And then one day, she gets kind of mad at all the things that's happening, and she's kind of feeling not so good. So she takes on her car, and just drives off, kind of to nowhere. And somehow she ends up at this lake where she grew up on, and her parents tell her not to go there. And the town is very superstitious because they say there's vampires and bad spots on this lake where people disappear and people can die. And she ends up being kidnapped by these vampires, and she finds herself being chained and being kind of used as a bait for food. But the vampire who is supposed to eat her doesn't really want to eat her because he is basically trying to combat this other vampire who's his rival, who's trying to tell him, you're not above us. When you're hungry, you do have to drink her blood, and kind of scare him off. So Sunshine is very scared. Another interesting thing about this novel is that the main character protagonist, Sunshine, one of her powers is to be in the sun, which is also pretty interesting. And the story goes along. Things really get interesting as the days roll on and off. One of my favorite parts about Sunshine is definitely the plot line. It's really interesting. Definitely the fact that the main protagonist is someone who embraces the sun instead of someone who is scared, kind of scared of the darkness, but she grows and sparkles in the sun. It's very interesting. And the entire world she lives in, how this girl, she wants to create her own world and ends up getting trapped in this very superstitious, mythical adventure is also something really addicting. The story definitely picks up pace and hooks you upon the first few pages, which is also something very nice. The writing style was also great. What I didn't like, well, it's not 100% different from a lot of vampire stories out there. The thing with stories is everything is recycled. There's no new concepts. If you read a lot of books, kind of like me, kind of like a lot of people that I know, stories can get a little bit repetitive. This one is still fantastic, and it's great and very eye-catching. But it isn't different to the point where I would say it's like something that's a must read if you have have one book to spare. This is the one you pick. Overall, though, a strong story that's a mix of multiple genres, and we would highly recommend. The grade for Sunshine on our website, we will post this out A. Please check out our full review on our website. That's written out and typed out. Thanks for watching. Here is Book Talk Reviews. This is Sunshine.